Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on our news.
Former PLP MP Frank Smith spending another night in police custody before he is arraigned.
The National Security Minister responds to the recent questioning of several former politicians.
A 20-year-old man faces murder charges in the magistrates' court.
Will the Ministry of Foreign Affairs release their official statement after conducting their audits?
Our news is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive. Welcome to our news, and thanks for joining us. I'm Vonique Jude. Topping news tonight, former St. Thomas More Member of Parliament and Chairman of the Public Hospitals Authority, Frank Smith, remains in police custody tonight. Smith's attorney says his arraignment schedule for this afternoon was postponed because the prosecution wasn't prepared. Kyle Joaquin has the details.
Obviously, Smith's family and his legal team left the courtroom very disappointed today as they came expecting for him to be arraigned today. However, as they learned, he will have to spend yet another night in police custody.
This is hideous, and it is unforgivable.
And that was how attorney Damian Gomez said he could best sum up the situation they found themselves in Thursday afternoon. His client, former Senator Frank Smith, was escorted into Magistrates Court Number 1 wearing handcuffs around 2:20 p.m. for his arraignment. Moments later, Gomez and the prosecution were summoned by Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt. Almost an hour later, the matter resumed, only for Prosecutor Timmy Saunders to tell the court that Smith's file was not fully prepared and should be ready on Friday, sometime around noon. This did not sit well with Smith's attorney. He said after being told at 1:30 p.m. to be at court for 2 p.m. for his client's arraignment, he didn't expect this outcome. Gomez also asked that the time be moved up as the former senator has been in police custody since 10 a.m. on Wednesday, and by law, one can only be in police custody for 48 hours without being charged. The magistrate then requested that the arraignment take place no later than 11 a.m. on Friday. Outside of court, Gomez said as an attorney, he's never seen a situation play out like this before.
It is an attempt to prevent him from obtaining bail before the weekend. And this can only be regarded as a most vicious attempt to take away the liberty of a person who has given public service for many years and who is a professional.
In court, the magistrate also made one inquiry. She asked about Smith's treatment while in custody and whether he had been given lunch, seeing that it was nearing 4 p.m. Smith got up and responded no. The chief magistrate, shaking her head, then asked if he had breakfast, to which he responded yes. She allowed him to speak with his family and asked that a family member quickly get him lunch before he was taken back to the police station. Smith is the second former PLP MP to be taken before the magistrate's court within a week. Just last Thursday, former Environment Minister Kenred Dorset was arraigned on charges of extortion, bribery, and misconduct of a public official. He was granted bail in the Supreme Court the next day. Gomez said he's waiting for Smith's arraignment Friday morning to see where the legal team goes next.
As soon as we have the arraignment completed, we will be before the Supreme Court attempting to get bail.
It is the second time our news has spoken today with Gomez, who is the former Minister of State for Legal Affairs. At CDU headquarters this morning, he said things seemed odd. For one, he had no idea where his client was. Then there was a meeting that was scheduled at CDU.
It never occurred. And I only found out that it was canceled when I was present at CDU.
For our news, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
National Security Minister Marvin Dames is defending the recently established Anti-Corruption Unit. He said it is absurd that people would accuse government of a witch hunt just because several former politicians were questioned by police after the general election. Dames says no one is above the law. Jasmine Brown reports.
The National Security Minister says he finds those criticisms absurd as he insists no one is above the law.
This whole question about witch hunt is absurd. And for us to continue to pursue it, it's ridiculous.
On Monday, Prime Minister Hubert Minnis fired back at critics who insisted his administration is too busy conducting a political witch hunt instead of focusing on governing the country. He has insisted the chips will fall where they may. While speaking with reporters today, Dames asserts accusations of a witch hunt hold no water because government is not bringing forth any complaints. The National Security Minister says every complaint is reported and investigated, with none taking priority over the other.
The police investigate, and if there's evidence of wrongdoing, then persons are held responsible. If there are no evidence of wrongdoing, then they are freed, right? There are safety valves. Our systems are designed as such that if the police, after their investigation, and they find out, working certainly in partnership with the Attorney General's office, find out if there are sufficient evidence to put people before the courts, there's still another step, right? So if the police then compile their information, put their files before the courts, then you have the courts. At the end of the day, who will decide whether a person is guilty or innocent.
He adds that it's strange there would be so much noise in the market over former MPs being questioned by police when there are others who face that issue every day.
We have this hue and cry, all right? Young men are being arrested in communities on a daily basis. Who's out there defending them and standing up for them and making big news stories out of that? Every day. You walk down to the courts now, see the amount of young men that are going before magistrates, right? Do we have people out there crying and saying, oh, there's a witch hunt when a young man is arrested for a joint?
Thames also denied claims that Scotland Yard is assisting the anti-corruption unit with its investigations. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Officers of the Central Detective Unit brought an accused murderer before the magistrates' court today to be charged in connection with a recent shooting in Coconut Grove. Giorgio Bain reports.
A man believed to be responsible for one of those murders faces his day in the magistrates' court. 20-year-old Deano Nixon, a resident of Ridgeland Park, stood before Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt to answer to the charge of murder. It is alleged that on July 6, 2017, while in New Providence, Nixon did intentionally, by means of unlawful harm, cause the death of Khalif Adderley. The incident took place shortly after 10 p.m. that Sunday off Robinson Road. According to police reports, the victim was walking on 3rd Street, Coconut Grove, when a gunman approached him. The suspect shot the victim before fleeing the area. Adderley was taken to hospital where he died the following morning. In court today, Nixon was not required to enter a plea. His case will proceed by way of voluntary bill of indictment. He will be remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections and returns to court on September 5th for the beginning of trial. Reporting for our news, I'm Giorgio Bain.
The Ministries of Health and National Security releasing the results of the 2017 Bahamas National Household Drug Prevalence Survey today. 2,533 people between 12 and 65 years old were interviewed for the survey on their lifetime use of drugs and alcohol. According to its findings, alcohol was the most used substance with a lifetime use prevalence of 74%. Tobacco was the second most used substance with 21% of interviewees admitting to using the drug. That was followed by marijuana at 13%. Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands says that the statistics are vital.
We must remain focused on the benefits of a reduction in the prevalence of drug use, but more importantly, drug abuse. And such a goal, while neither simple nor easy, is indeed achievable. Despite all the noise in the international and local marketplace, I believe that it is worth every effort that we exert to gain improvements. And for those of you that may wonder, I mean reduction in the prevalence of drug use, including alcohol, tobacco, and sugar.
Alcohol was prevalent among young people between 12 to 24 years old, with 60.9% of females admitting to drinking compared to the 59.9% of males. The survey was a joint initiative between both ministries and the United States Embassy. U.S. Charge d'Affaires Lisa Johnson says given the high usage of marijuana and alcohol among young people, there needs to be a specific approach to addressing the troubling trend.
I would ask that you consider ways to work together to reshape the youth narrative about marijuana and alcohol abuse by correlating the most serious effects of these drugs, from the loss of opportunities in the future to the violent crime being perpetrated in people's neighborhoods across the islands. We can impart the seriousness of the use of these substances to the younger generation.
The last survey that measured lifetime use of alcohol and drugs was conducted in 1991. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has conducted its first audit, announcing today that the first plan of action is saving government money by recalling a number of ambassadors sent abroad. April Sands has that story.
Well, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs recalls 9 officers from abroad in an attempt to reduce government spending and, as Minister Darren Henfield puts it, to also rehire younger officials instead.
We are in an instance where we cannot afford to maintain individuals that we don't really need in the system. It is a very delicate tightrope to walk, but we're doing our best in this regard.
After conducting an audit, Henfield said the decision was made to bring 9 Bahamian diplomatic staff members back home. He says the aim is to save government millions of dollars.
We've asked to return 7 to 9 attachés that we think we can otherwise live without. With these attachés, when they're posted in foreign missions, comes additional costs.
And those additional costs, he says, can run up to $400,000 per staff member annually. He says that includes living expenses and other allowances.
I want to send young people out of this country who are trained and qualified with university degrees and college degrees who came to the Foreign Service to serve abroad, not to serve here in Nassau, to serve abroad, and they can better help our interest abroad because they're trained and qualified to do so. And so all we did was send for superfluous staffing, people that we didn't think were necessary to be in a foreign mission to accomplish the goals and objectives of the Bahamas at this particular stage.
Last month, Henfield told reporters that Bahamian diplomatic staff have been asked to return to the Bahamas by July 21st. That's tomorrow. Henfield said at the time government will seek to reduce the number of contract workers in those foreign offices and utilize more foreign service workers. The Foreign Affairs Minister has also said his ministry will be restructured to cut out unnecessary spending, stating there will be no more free lunches. Reporting for our news, I'm April Sands.
Coming up, murders are up, but what is government doing about it? That's coming up after the break.